I want to ask you something. Have you ever wondered what is actually happening inside your body when you feel exhausted? Not the symptoms, not the experience of fatigue, but the actual mechanism. What is going wrong and where? Because I think when you understand this part, something shifts. It stops feeling like a mystery. It starts feeling like something you can actually work with. Today, we are going to look at how your body makes energy, why that process breaks down, and what it means for why you feel the way you do. If you have been following this series, you know that in the first 2 weeks, we looked at why fatigue is often not a sleep problem and why the usual approaches, rest, supplements, self-care, do not reach the root when the nervous system is under sustained strain. Well, this week is about the underneath of all of that, the actual biology of energy production, what it requires, what it disrupts, and why chronic stress is so effective at shutting it down. If this is your first video in the series, do not worry. Everything I cover today stands on its own. You do not need the backstory to follow along. So let us start at the beginning. Every cell in your body runs on a molecule called ATP. Think of this as the body's energy currency. Your heart uses it to beat, your muscles use it to move, your brain uses it to think, your digestive system uses it to process food. Every single biological process in your body is drawing from that same supply all the time. ATP is made inside structures called mitochondria, what we call the powerhouse of your cells. Mitochondria take in fuel, mainly glucose and fats from the food you eat, and they convert that fuel into usable energy using oxygen. That's the basic process. Now, here is the part that matters. That process does not happen automatically. It requires very specific conditions. It needs the right nutrients as raw materials. It needs the right enzymes to run the conversion. And it needs a cellular environment that is not under active threat. When any one of those conditions is disrupted, energy production slows. And when multiple conditions are disrupted at once, which is exactly what happens under chronic stress, it can slow dramatically. Persistent fatigue may not be a matter of you failing to rest enough. It is often a breakdown in the conditions the body needs to make energy reliably. Those are very different problems with very different solutions. So, what is actually disrupting those conditions? For most of the women I work with, the answer starts with cortisol. Cortisol is your primary stress hormone. In the short term, it is genuinely useful. It sharpens your focus, mobilizes fuel from your cells, and helps your body respond to demands. When you have a deadline, a difficult conversation, or something that requires extra capacity, cortisol is part of what makes that possible. It is designed for that. The problem is what happens when it runs at high output for a very long time. Now, research has shown that chronically elevated cortisol directly impairs mitochondrial function. It reduces the activity of the enzymes that run the energy production process. It can impair the structural integrity of the mitochondria themselves. And it disrupts the hormonal environment that cells depend on to access and use fuel efficiently, including thyroid and sex hormones. In plain language, When your stress response has been running too long, it physically degrades the structures that make your energy. And here's the important part. Your body is not doing this by mistake. In survival mode, making energy efficiently is just not the top priority. Staying alive is. So the body redirects resources toward the threat response and away from repair and restoration. That is adaptive. That is truly intelligent. The problem is that the body was not designed to stay in that mode indefinitely. And let's face it, many of you have been in it for years. There is a second layer to this that I want to explain because it answers one of the questions I hear very, very often. Why are my supplements not helping? Well, your mitochondria need specific nutrients to run the energy production process. B vitamins are involved at almost every stage. Magnesium is required for ATP synthesis. Iron carries oxygen to your cells. Coenzyme Q10 is a critical component of the final stage of energy production. When these are low, the process slows. So the logical step is to supplement. And many women do. They get the blood work done, they find the gaps, they fill them, and still they feel terrible. Well, here's why. Chronic stress suppresses the digestive and absorptive processes that allow nutrients to enter the bloodstream. The gut slows down, enzyme secretion drops. The environment that nutrients need in order to be absorbed properly stops working the way it should. You can be taking exactly the right things and still not absorbing them effectively because the system that handles absorption has been compromised by the same chronic stress response that is impairing your mitochondria. It is not the supplements. It's the hole in the bottom of the bucket. Now, I want to take a moment to speak directly to something that many women in their 40s and 50s experience. You have managed your energy, your stress, your capacity for a very long time. You've built systems around it. And then at some point, those systems just stopped working. The same strategies that used to be enough no longer are. And the fatigue has become something you cannot push through the way you used to. This is not just getting older. There is a specific physiological reason for it. Estrogen plays a direct protective role in mitochondrial function. It supports the process by which the body makes new mitochondria and protects existing ones from stress-related damage. As estrogen declines during perimenopause, that protection just diminishes. The mitochondria become much more vulnerable. At the same time, progesterone has a calming effect on the nervous system. It supports the brain's primary inhibitory pathway, which is essentially the system that quietens the stress response. As progesterone declines, this natural buffer weakens. The nervous system becomes much more reactive. The HPA axis, which is the system that governs the stress response, it fires more easily and takes longer to settle. The result is that any chronic stress load that was already present just gets amplified. The mitochondria are less protected, and the stress response is more sensitive. The nutrient depletion accelerates. Nothing entirely new has gone wrong. Everything that was already under strain has simply become harder to carry. So, what does all of this mean in practice? Well, if energy production is breaking down because of chronically elevated cortisol, suppressed absorption, and a nervous system that cannot fully restore, then working at the level of those conditions is what actually creates change. That means the nervous system has to be the starting point, not a mindfulness app as a nice add-on, not a stress management as an afterthought. Nervous system regulation is the primary target of the work. Because when the nervous system is no longer running a chronic threat response, the cortisol begins to settle, digestion restores, nutrients start absorbing, and the mitochondria can finally do their job. It also means understanding that recovery is cumulative. The load built up over time. Rebuilding capacity also takes time. This is not a failure of the approach. It is how the biology works. The body keeps accounts, and restoring what has been depleted requires a consistent support over a period of time, not a single intervention. Your body has not forgotten how to make energy. The capacity is still there. What has happened is that the conditions required for that process to work properly have been disrupted. And the conditions can change. When the body is given what it needs, it already knows what to do. That is not a motivational statement. That is a physiological statement. Now, next week is the final part of this series. We are going to look at what it actually means to create the conditions for sustainable energy. Not managing fatigue, not pushing through it, building the foundation that allows the body to produce and sustain energy reliably. That is a very different conversation from anything most women have been offered. And I think it is the one that actually changes things. If this video has been useful, the full written version of what I covered today is linked in the description. It goes a bit deeper on the research and includes a nutrient reference table that I think is really worth having. And if you're watching this and recognizing yourself in it, I want you to take something with you. Fatigue is not a fixed state. It is a signal. It is the body communicating that the conditions have not been right. And when the conditions shift, the body already knows what to do next. I look forward to seeing you next week.